all across the fantasy universe. Welcome, one and all, to Ask Guru Anything, powered by fantasypoints.com. I'm your host, Brian Drake. You can catch me on that Twitter machine at Drake Fantasy, hanging with the guru, the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, at fantasy_guru on Twitter. It is John Hansen. John, how's everything going out there today, man?
Oh, it's going well, Brian. It's good to do another edition of AGA. And I want to get something out of the way right out of the bat. I tweeted 30 minutes ago to promote this about how I was going to give my full support to Baby Gronk's dad here on the broadcast. God. Of course, I did that to be facetious, if you will. Of course not. I'm not going to support that jackass here on Father's Day week. You know, I was giving dads a bad name out there. So no, I will say though that shout out to all the dads out there. We need to pump up Father's Day a little bit more. I think it could be just a little bit bigger out there. Wouldn't you agree?
I know. I'm a father. I've got two young kids now, 11 and 9 years old. I took them to a Yankees game this weekend, of all things, because my son's starting to get into baseball. My wife asked me this weekend, or actually today at dinner, what do you want to do for Father's Day? And I feel like a dick if I say, I just want to go golfing by myself. Like, I feel like that's kind of a selfish thing. I don't know. We can do a barbecue in the backyard with the family, you know?
Right,
what do you say to that? I mean, you've got some older kids than me. You've been doing this a long time.
And my wife always tries to, you know, do something big. Every once in a while, she sneaks in like a gift that is supposedly for me. One time she got me basically like a surprising, it was like a luxury edition, like basically beer cooler. And it was nice for me, you know, for my beer, which, you know, I do appreciate that. But yeah, we were just talking off the air. I like to kind of on this thing give out, you know, a couple of stories, one or two per little episode. You know, when you've been around as long as I have, you know, do have some stories, not all football related, by the way. But we were just talking about your son, you know, put Little League in terms of playing on the back burner now for a year or whatever. Now he's a little hesitant to, you know, try it out again. And he's like, what, 11? So that reminded me of a story of, you know, when I coached Little League baseball, I somehow managed to coach, I think it was 14 years in a row. Starting from like my oldest son, like 7-year-old, maybe T-ball, 6-year-old T-ball, and then the 7-8-year-old machine pitch. And then my next son, who is 5 years younger, right when he was coming up, you know, my older went to the big field, which is a little above my pay grade. So I coached him, and then the twins came in. So I just happened to, you know, get like 13 out of 14 straight years being mostly a head coach. But the story in particular was, and it's a good story for anyone, like to certainly never give up. But it's kind of fantasy related though, because so when you coach a Little League baseball team, it's pretty much similar to this in most towns. You know, you usually do 2 years. So this would be the final year. We actually did, I guess it's Cal Ripken, which is not officially Little League. But that would be, you know, 11, 12. And my son was a 12 and I was coaching, you know, that year, last chance saloon, you know, last year for Little League, right? So you have your returning players, but then you have your rising 11s, and then they do the little look-see. So you know what you're dealing with, and you do a draft, just like, you know, the fantasy draft. And by the way, I have a lot of annoying stories about how I spotted this kid when he was 8 throwing a dude out from right field. They ended up being a very accomplished pitcher in the area and all that. But this story was about a kid who had not played Little League baseball since T-ball. So, I mean, he knew nothing, right? And he was in 7th grade or whatever it was, same grade as my son. So he was a 12. But, you know, we do the look-see, and the dads are kind of not really paying attention. Of course, I'm scouting out like crazy, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I think this kid's pretty good, you know. I think he's got some athletic ability over here to work with, you know. So I wait in the draft, held off in the draft, and took him with my next to last pick. Brandon was his name. first game of the season. We practice, ramp it up for the season, practice for like 3 weeks or whatever. I'm trying to teach him as much as I could. I was very big on the fundamentals. I really started to get into like the mechanics and stuff, from the beginning, get it right. But anyway, not for this kid because, well, I guess we were starting from scratch. So first game, he gets on base, somewhat critical moment, and I guess he got the second, and then he should have advanced to third on a play, but he ran the wrong way on the bases.
Oh, no.
So very embarrassing, all that, tell the dad, I'm like, don't worry about it. It's only the first game of the year. I'm like, he'll be fine. Right. Well, fast forward to the end of the season. I had a pretty good team. We made it to the championship game, but for some reason, like all my top hitters completely crapped a bit. My 1 through 6 hitters went 1 or 0 for 17. I mean, how does that happen?
Oh, no.
Maybe it was 1 for 17, but it wasn't more than 1 for 17. It was either 0 or 1.
They got some bad snow cones before the game.
And my son was one of them, of course. So it was a tight game, extra innings. Long story short, this kid, and we were, I don't know what, I guess we were, I thought we were home, but it went extra innings. This kid ended up getting the game-winning hit in the championship game. Now, it does not stop there because we went extra innings. I had to put him in. I put him in at pitcher, and he got the last 3 outs of the championship and the game-winning hit in the championship. Now, I would imagine, I hope that kid never forgot that moment. I know his dad was like thanking me on. I was like, dude, my pleasure. I mean, it was like the most enjoyable moment I had in sports coaching, other than any moment with my own kids. So there you go. Tell your son that, never say never. And you're right. It's about getting better because I saw it from both sides. My oldest son was an immediate stud. Like I taught him how to throw, hit. It was like one time, when he was like 4, he's like, I got it, so easy. And my middle son was honestly not even half the player growing up, and he kind of was in his shadow. But I said, look, I'm off in the spring. It's a lot of, we can spend a lot of time together. And I said, let's just get better,
Sure.
And it's exactly what happened. I had a guy tell me, he made a couple of all-star teams at the end. He goes, your son is the most improved player I've seen from one year to the next in my life. I'm like, there you go. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And kids today, and this is what the beauty of this show, because it's just ask Guru anything, folks. You can talk about whatever you want. I feel like kids today, if something doesn't come instant, there's no instant gratification. If they're not great the first time they try something, they're done. They quit. They want to get out. And I think we can equate that to fantasy football, where if someone's not great week 1, week 2, like, what are you talking about, Guru? You told me that, Ramondre Stevenson was going to be a super stud, and here he is splitting carries the first 2 weeks. You're an idiot, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. Same thing we see in fantasy, same thing we see with our kids.
It's a good example. Maybe I'll end up being wrong and looking like a jackass, but Sky Moore is a good example. Like everyone's bailing on Sky Moore. Now, I know the kid wasn't a high pedigree guy, but he was a 2nd-round pick, right? It's pretty decent draft capital and all that. But yeah, everyone's like, well, he didn't do it, so goodbye. Well, who has done it in year 1? I mean, I keep bringing up Deshaun Jackson, but he's kind of got a unique skill set. I think he only scored 1 touchdown that year, by the way. 1. I think he went over 1,000 with only 1 touchdown. So it wasn't like he was unbelievable. And then, of course, Tyreek Hill wasn't even remotely close to Tyreek Hill in year 1. So that's a great example there, I think, Sky Moore.
So you guys see what we're doing here. We bring John in. We open up the floodgates. The floor is yours. We want you to go over to the YouTube page, youtube.com/fantasypoints. If you're watching the show, you can ask us a question there. Hit that subscribe button. There's so much great content that we're putting out through the YouTube channel. You're going to love it. Between the show I do with Joe Dolan, the 2-point stance, there's best ball drafts, there's funny shorts. John's doing all kinds of player breakdowns. You're going to love it. Subscribe over to the YouTube channel. And then, oh, by the way, once you love that, you're going to want to come over to fantasypoints.com, get in on the full season action. And a little birdie told me, John, Fantasy Points data, the thing that's going to change the game for Fantasy Points, is coming down the line. here
Yeah.
in June, and we've got people knocking on the door already asking when that's going to be available.
Yeah, these things always take longer than you thought. We've been working on it now for 19 straight months. Now we don't have a team of 20, 30 coders and programmers and all that, but it's coming along very, very well. And for us to be here on June 13th on the precipice of releasing a beta version, it's everyone who's seen it has been pretty darn blown away, and looks like it's definitely going to be a game changer. Like, why go anywhere else? I think we have a very trustworthy staff, and we're going to have our own data points. We don't need crap from anybody else. We got it all in house.
Yeah, it's awesome, folks. I've seen it. If you're a content creator, you're just a fantasy player in your home league. I mean, I've been playing around with this thing, guys. It's crazy, where you could say, I want to look at running backs and show me how they did in division.
Oh, the filtering is sick.
Night games against the spread, blah, blah. It's madness, the amount of cool stuff you do here. Just wait till that comes out. Go over to fantasypoints.com. Get signed up today. It's going to be a great year. But let's get into the questions. That's why we're here. We've got so many people in the chat room. How about our friend Brian Friedman? He's going to kick us off. Would you draft Dalvin Cook in the 8th round as a RB2? He's talking best ball here. Or is that too risky? Now, if you're talking about Mr. Dalvin Cook, his ADP on Underdog is 77 right now.
Yeah. But that's hard to say, right? Because how much of that data is from pre-release?
This should be pretty accurate, because it's got let's see, where Alexander Madison's at 65.
Okay. All right. Well, ironically, I did just update the top 200 cheats today at fantasypoints.com. Those PDFs that I do manually, because how else are you going to automate ranking players overall? Like, if you go by total points, it'll be all quarterbacks, right? So that's why I manually do it. It's a pain in the ass for sure, but I try my best to price the players based on where I think they should go, but also weighing that against where they're going, basically. So if I'm 12 to 14 picks off a player's ADP, good or bad, higher or lower, that means that's a significant position, basically, because the markets are pretty darn tight here. I am stalling, by the way, as I scroll down to find Dalvin Cook. Well, we are close here. 113 overall. What is that, 9th round? I'm terrible at that.
Dude, you want to see how bad you are at this? You want to talk? Ask Guru anything? Ask Drake anything? I printed this off, John, years ago. This little cheat sheet with snake draft order, and I keep it hidden at my desk, because I would do, the show that I would do with Dwayne McFarland and I. We would always talk about drafts, and someone would be like, "Oh, he's the 125th player off the board." I have no idea when that is. I'm terrible at math. I have a degree in broadcasting, so I have a cheat sheet there to tell me if he's 97th overall, he is a 9th round pick.
Right. I normally guess, and I'm normally pretty good. That was a bad guess. Well, 9th round, or is it 10th?
97th in a 12 team. He'd be the first pick of the 9th round.
Okay, so actually, then there it is. It's that's where I put him. So 8th round, yeah, I think so. Especially if I was a little light at running back, and I needed a guy who could, obviously be a needle mover. If you listen to the SiriusXM show on Friday, Adam Schefter told me that, let's not guarantee or don't count on Dalvin to Miami as a lock, but it's still probably the favorite. And if it's not them, it should be Denver, I guess. But he did dangle out like maybe there's another team. But we'll get Shefty on this pod or one of the fantasy points pods here. Not this one, I guess. That would be dumb to have. Hey, Adam, ask Guru. No. Although
I'll gladly have Adam Schefter on and interview him also.
Yeah, well, he loves to chop it up and talk fantasy. I mean, he'll do it all day long. Like he was on with me and Kaplan on Friday. It's like 20 minutes. It went by like like nothing. Yeah, so that's okay. It's about right. What do you think?
Listen, I've said it all off season. I think that Dalvin Cook is going to be a steal this year. He's one of those guys. Everyone acts like he's coming off like an ACL or something. Like he had the shoulder cleaned up. I don't think, and I saw the metrics on the Vikings line, and you're a big Vikings guy. I didn't think, despite that the Vikings line was great. I saw him getting hit behind that line all the time, and people
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
put that on him. But I
right.
still think in the right scheme, he can be really, really productive. If he's behind a great offensive line, I'm not going to say Philadelphia, but Philadelphia, San Francisco, those type of places, he's going to be good. He can catch the ball. He can pass protect. He can, run when the hole is there for him. Like, he's not some scrub. We talk about him like how people talk about Zeke Elliott these days or Ronald Jones. Like he's just this, guy you want to get away from your lineup at all costs. But I don't know. I'm still kind of in. I think wherever he goes, he's going to be productive. It's those super boring guys like last year, Miles Sanders. Nobody wanted Miles Sanders last year. And the guy turns around and he gets you like double-digit touchdowns. And he, if you draft him in the mid-rounds, you look like a hero.
Yeah, the other thing too is wherever he does go, he is. I kind of view him as a volume guy. I don't know how well he would do in a committee type of situation. He does need to get the ball and get into a rhythm and all that. As a Vikings fan, and I was a big Dalvin Cook guy when he came out. I keep mentioning this, but I did take him over McCaffrey. So that was ballsy, but I was feeling it with Cook, and I was correct on that. He's very, very good. I think he's probably about 88% of where he was a couple of years ago. I think we're slowing down a little bit, but when you're starting out at a pretty darn good place as he was, he's still a quality player. I'm a little underwhelmed by his receiving work overall. I don't know if he fully, reached his potential there, but as we saw late last year, how about that? Was that the Colts game? I guess the big come from behind game where he took that little dump off. I mean, he's deadly on those puppies. So
Yeah,
we shall
I
see
think
where
about
he
that all the
lands.
time with Cook. He's a guy you get a screen. It's very Derrick Henry like, where you just every once in a while you see these highlights of like, oh, here's this 5-yard dump off that he weaves his way through the secondary and scores a touchdown, and you say, why don't they do that every week with Derrick
Yeah.
Henry or with
You know
Dalvin
what?
Cook?
I think is I could be crazy on this one, but when I watch this guy's tape, I thought I saw a couple of plays in the screen passing game where I'm like, wow, this guy could be deadly. Cam Akers.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and look at his also Florida State, right? If you go back and look
Yeah.
at his tape, I mean, he had a couple of those Dalvin Cook like catch and runs like a long ass way. I'm just waiting for that to be unlocked in LA with the Rams.
Yeah, I think the Rams guys, Akers and Cooper Kupp, are going to be undervalued this year, even though you're getting Cooper Kupp middle to end of first round. I think he's going to lead the NFL in targets because the team is terrible. They have one player on defense, and he's going to see 58 targets a game. All right, more questions here. How about our pal Sean in the chat? Tony Pollard or Ramondre Stevenson in the second of a redraft? I love both. Now, Pollard has the higher ADP. Ramondre Stevenson, if you guys didn't see the news, things opened up a little for him as James Robinson was released by the Patriots. So it's kind of just Pierre Strong and is there a Kevin Harris, a couple other kind of second-year backs. So it's the seas have parted for Ramondre, who we know can also catch the ball himself on a team there with not a lot of weapons around him. So I think they could feature Ramondre. I'm cool with either guy here, Guru, in the second round. So are you splitting hairs choosing between these guys, Pollard and Stevenson?
Well, hell, if you would have asked me 5 days ago, I would have actually gone with Pollard, but because I wasn't feeling all that well about Ramondre. I still have a weird vibe on him based on how he wore down late last year. But I thought that James Robinson would be, potentially the biggest thorn in his side, honestly, taking over basically kind of like the Damian Harris role. But I don't know, man. I guess James Robinson either is done off this Achilles or it's kind of like Deontay Foreman. Needs like 7 years to fully recover because that's a shame how, he's fallen off since that injury. I talked with a guy, Andy Hart up in New England, who I respect a ton. And he was thinking that James Robinson, was going to factor in, but because of how Ramondre wore down, like we cannot do what they did last year. So with the news, I had to absolutely move Ramondre up and give him a little bit more love. So now I'm at 303 touches, RB7. I mean, they're not off to a great start offensively, reportedly, but it's still June, so we're not panicking just yet. But Bill O'Brien should get the offense straightened out, at least compared to where they were last year. The O-line isn't great at this point, but it's certainly, I wouldn't call it a weakness. So, and then there's just nothing but questions behind him. Like clearly the young guys they drafted last year are going to get opportunities. Kevin Harris, maybe on early downs. I think Pierre Strong could be a real nice complimentary guy. I thought he looked incredibly explosive last year. And then, of course, Ty Montgomery won't go away. So, but with James Robinson out of the mix, I think it's Ramondre. I moved him way up on our latest cheat sheet, which I published today.
It's one of those things, too. I can just see Belichick adding like Zeke or, who I think would fit in there huge?
Too.
Fournette. Fournette to me seems like a Belichick guy. End of the career, sort of LeGarrette Bluntish.
Yeah.
He comes in and all of a sudden.
There was another team that I just was looking at that Fournette made a lot of sense. I got to pull that in. Who the hell was that? But hell, maybe it was New England. But also, we also need to see about Pollard too. Ironically,
yeah,
they could get Fournette or Zeke. I think that'll be Zeke, but we shall see.
I do too. How about this is the fun of this show, the Ask Guru Anything. You can legit ask anything, and I love these kind of random questions to break it up. A friend of the show, Gabe Butler, he says, Drake's a huge wrestling fan, of course. Guru, do you like wrestling? And if so, who are your favorite wrestlers?
I'm going to offend you and some other people, but my running joke was I used to love wrestling. And then, what was it? Damn it. I lost the joke.
It was no.
I got the joke. Here it is. It's like, when I was a little kid, I loved wrestling, but then I turned 9 and found out it was fake. And that was it. But I watched a lot of old wrestling in the 70s. Like I'm going way back here. I actually remember Bruno Sammartino. Of course, Bobby Backlund was the champ. Now, what is that? WCW?
That was old school WW or the Sammartino days, the WWWF.
WWW.
Yeah, when Vince's dad owned it.
My favorite wrestler of all time is Milos Maska.
Oh, okay.
The man of 1,000 masks.
Yeah.
But I used to also love me some Tony Garea and Larry Zbyszko.
Larry Zbyszko, the living legend, right there. If you
actually,
weren't the Guru,
here's one for you. I mean, rest in peace, right? But Jimmy Snuka used to live about half a mile down the road from me here in southern New Jersey, if you can believe that.
Did he ever try to kill you?
No, he did not. Fortunate enough for me. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. If you heard stories about Jimmy Snuka, there's some fun ones out there. Yeah. Our pal Sean Rickman
are you a Blue Meanie guy, by the way?
I'm a huge old school ECW guy. I've been to numerous ECW shows, interviewed some of these guys in person, including Rob Van Dam. Funny story. So I was a guy in college. I had a wrestling show, and we went to a show in Buffalo, and I was interviewing a bunch of ECW guys on the floor. Little Guido, Spike Dudley, and we had them, they would call in all stuff. We go to Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam's the biggest guy in their company. Like, Rob, can you do an interview for us? It's taped. We're college kids, who cares? He goes, you got any weed? We're like, what? They pat you down when you come into an ECW show, like you're going to Shawshank, right? And we're like, no. He's like, no, sorry, man. Got to pay me somehow. I'm like, all right, brother. We'll see you later. He wanted us to give him literally like a dime bag or something to, to do the interview.
When I became a fantasy football expert, it was on this little television show I was doing in New Jersey that was going to like 1 million homes in the 90s. And it became a little bit of a cult following thing because we did a Monday Night Football pregame show. It was kind of Howard Stern meets Wayne's World. Our top sponsor was Delilah's Den, the local gentleman's club, and we would put on some big special Super Bowl shows, and our 2 big guests that would join us every year were Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie from ECW. So I actually
BWO are Gurites. There you go.
Yep. And the Blue Meanie, one time I'm picturing it right now, live on the air, did hoagie wrestling with strippers live on television in like 1996.
I'll reach out to him on Twitter. We'll see if we can get
Yeah.
him on a show.
Well,
I
yeah.
love.
Yeah. I said it. I put it out there. So either I'm a liar or it happened.
Unbelievable. Guru, someone wants to know, Hansen's got to be what, 5'10", maybe 5'11"? It feels like he's 6'6". How tall are you, John?
Well, I was 6'2" when, I graduated from high school, but I really think I've shrunk in half an inch. So let's go 6'1.5".
There you go.
6'2".
I went to the Yankees game, I said, on Saturday, and they had a guy come up to the plate that was, what's his name? He plays right field for him, and he's filling in for Judge. It's like Willie something or other. They said the guy's 5'8". I go, this guy's 5'8", and he's in the major leagues. I couldn't believe it. Willie Calhoun. And then, of course, makes me look like a fool. Guy hits a home run to right field. I go, this guy's a clown. How are you in the major leagues at 5'8"? They probably pumped it up.
Look
He's
at Mookie
5'6".
Betts. Look at Mookie Betts. He's 5'9". He's jacking him out like, like Harmon Killebrew. I'm trying to think of like a big slugger guy. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable.
I got to go back in time and just start taking steroids. All right.
I don't think Mookie takes anything.
Well,
it's all in the
I would.
legs,
I'm
man.
150 pounds. I could use them.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, okay. I got you. I feel you.
Who do you value more between Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, and George Pickens? I like them all as mid-round steals.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm going to go Burks here. Was not a big Burks guy, but, you watched him, you could see, he's raw, but there's a lot of talent here. He's pretty imposing out there, I think. And, we all know it's going to be a low volume passing game, but hey, I like that security of my guy being the unquestioned alpha, you know what I mean? Like who's going to command the ball. So even though it's low volume, I mean, how does Treylon Burks not get 7.5 targets a game this year? And he's in way better place, shape, and in all facets this time compared to last year when he was dealing with the asthma. He reported overweight, really got off to a bad start. Right now he's off to a good start, like a great start.
I love we have guys in our chat room saying they worked with Harmon Killebrew's grandson.
Oh, I love those connections. And I have so many of them, but I know other people do too. Like I love hearing about that. Like I went, this famous person went to my high school. I love those. Although I don't really have anyone famous who went to my high school. I might be one of the most famous people, and nobody even knows that. It's not like on their Wikipedia or anything. The guy who is credited with that, Rodney Jerkins. Does anyone know who he is? But he's like,
I've used his lotion often.
The guy won like 15 Grammys, like producing for like Beyonce and stuff, but yeah, I love those kind of inside stories.
Shout out to Henniger High School in Syracuse, New York. Frank Whaley, who was an actor in the 80s, was one of our alums. And then Marquise Walker, if you remember him, big prospect. He's the all-time leading receiver at the University of Michigan. Went to the Bucks. He was on their practice squad when they won a Super Bowl. Ran track with them my senior year. So real nice kid, Marquise, and two most famous guys out of Henniger. That's
a good tweet, though. That's a good July tweet. Name the most famous alumni from your high school.
Yeah, it's third is me, and fourth might be Gabe Butler, who is also in our chat. We got a lot of guys asking in different questions, so I'll kind of glom them together here from the tweet you sent out about the show, and then guys in the chat. A lot of people asking about the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to be without Jamison Williams for the first 6 weeks of the season. They did get rid of TJ Hawkinson, so now you got Sam Laporta as the tight end here in Detroit. It seems like it's kind of all coming together for him to have another really good season. But I've noticed, because on my underdog drafts lately, I consistently get him second round, maybe even falls to the third. He's good. All he does is catch balls and get open. But he's just so underrated. Like people, maybe because of his draft capital, but they just don't want to click his name.
Oh, totally. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but 2 summers ago, I only did like 4 videos total, and all 4 hit. One of them was Amon-Ra. I mean, because at the time it was like Brashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams. I'm like, what? And I happened to work out in LA with some USC people. Shout out Matt Bubar, who works at the NFL Network, who's a big USC guy, and he told me to watch out for, keep my eye on Amon-Ra. So I, was able to see him a little bit. So I was a little more familiar with him than I am your average college guy. But absolutely, what a great family! Like they're brilliant people. Like they speak all these different languages, and the father was a professional bodybuilder, and they're. I mean, Amon-Ra is a dog, man. He's hungry right now. This is what you want, man. You have 2 years in the league, and you proved you belong, obviously, and now you're looking to really elevate it to get that big contract that Justin Jefferson is basically about to get. So, and last year they lined him up outside a lot more, and he was fine. I mean, ideally he's inside, but we have him higher than the markets. I've been out in front on this one here because of the volume. 105 grabs, wide receiver 7. Yeah, I mean, I even saw, and I talked about that in that video I did in the preseason of that year. Jared Goff is like, why wouldn't he look to Amon-Ra? It's like Goff looking for Bobby Trees out there.
Yeah.
I saw the chemistry right away.
All right, we got a fantasy points subscriber here. Says, hello, Guru. Fantasy points subscriber here. I'd love to see you guys implement weekly QB rankings with options for 4 and 6 point passing touchdowns and 4 and 6 point rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's really specific, but I want to spin it forward this way. What are your thoughts on quarterbacks with the 4 point touchdown or the 6 point touchdown? Most leagues that I commissioner, I do the 6 point touchdown for everything. That's the way it is in the league. I don't want to get, I'm now devaluing a position, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the very basic point of those, that scoring nuance is that if you are giving out 6 points for the passing touchdown, the old cheat code is not as cheaty. So the guys who run in their scores, they're not as good, basically. And then, appropriately and, what's the word I'm looking for? Correspondingly, thank you. It's brain's firing a little slow here in the evening. The guys who rack up touchdown passes are the big winners. The Drew Breeses, Tom Brady, of course. So that's what it is, But of course, I've kind of, the way I've gone with it is I'm gonna find the best of both worlds in that I want a 30 touchdown candidate who can run potentially for 4 to 5. That's why Trevor Lawrence is such a slam dunk, just like Joe Burrow, just like I said Joe Burrow was last year. Didn't know he'd get 40, thought he could though. And I'm like, let's not overthink it. And that's the thing about Burrow too. Again, I keep saying this, but that was not his career year. Like it was a little rough going there, and he got 40.
Yeah, he's going to just have another phenomenal season. Our Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points put out a tweet earlier today comparing some of like the high-end metrics of Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow said, hey, until someone beats Mahomes, he's the best quarterback in the league. But every stat was in favor of Joe Burrow. And I get that because really that's what all it comes down to is who's going to, take the ring off Patrick Mahomes' finger. But Joe Burrow is so good. And I'd be happy to have him in any league, but I'd be more pleased than not to have the hair of Trevor Lawrence. That's all I want. Screw the fantasy points. Give me the hair. That kid's got it made in the shade.
Right. Tell you what, though, Justin Herbert, man, my man's got a luxurious head of hair. Okay. So Trevor Lawrence
undervalued this year too.
Yeah. I lost my other point there. I was going to cut you off on, but you mentioned hair and, the light bulb comes on here because I'm all about to. I'm in a couple of hair leagues myself. I just let go Drew Brees recently in a Dynasty hair league. I held on for a year, thinking he'd come back. Not like broadcasting, but now it's over.
Let me throw this at you, John. So the other day, I'm down at my in-laws, right, and my son is flipping through the TV. And he comes across Super Bowl. I want to say it's Super Bowl 12, Steelers Cowboys. Terry Bradshaw against Roger Staubach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're watching the game. We end up, there's nothing on television. We watch the entire game on the NFL Network, right?
Was that the second meeting?
This was Steelers won. It's the game. The famous backup tight end for the Cowboys drops the pass in the end zone.
Oh yeah, Jackie Smith.
Yeah, it was that game. But the
Wow.
one thing I took from that game
I
was,
saw it live. I saw that live when I was I guess I
wow.
was 9. Yeah.
Did you notice Terry Bradshaw's hair? He's got the old Friar tuck.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
never see that in today's NFL. He might be the last quarterback ever to do that. These guys all throw the hat on quick, but there's no bald quarterbacks anymore. Either they're getting some kind of procedure, or
Oh.
the scouting departments won't draft them. They want them all to look like Jimmy Garoppolo. There is
Yeah.
no Friar tuck bald guy
Oh my
quarterbacks anymore.
God.
I'm calling discrimination.
Wither Y.A. Tittle. I mean,
Yeah.
what the hell? It's a great point. Is there a correlation between being a baller and having good hair, though? Because, confidence wise, hey, it's like I just threw a pick 6, but look at his head of hair.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Someone asked if we can get another best hair draft this year.
Yeah. Maybe did we do a worst hair draft? I think we may have done a ball draft as well, and that's interesting. A lot of kickers going off the board early there.
Chris in Mobile asks us, which projected wide receiver twos have the best chance to be wide receiver ones this year? So you're predicting, guys in your, wide receiver 13 down to 24. So that, you're probably in that, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Debo kind of world. Which of those guys do you think have the best shot to be a wide receiver 1 this season?
Let's start down. We can, we'll even pass Olave because that's somewhat obvious. Well, I'll start with Jerry. Well, Jerry Judy's a 1 now, isn't he? Never mind. All right, I'll keep scrolling. The Jacksonville guys, that's a little confusing because that's a new major wrinkle in there, and it's kind of like they have 2 1s, in my opinion. Really, it's like Kirk and of course Ridley. Well, how about Chris Godwin just bogarting everything over Mike Evans? So it's a pretty obvious one there. Here's a good one, and I did a video on this guy. I think it's released. I don't have the data points in front of me, but freaking Brandon Ayuk, man. I think we may have talked to him about him last time, but I mean, this guy is continuing to get better and better, and somewhat quietly. Last year he was top 20, yet he's only 29 on the markets. We have him at 24. He was like 35. I'm telling you, like a month ago, we were way out in front. Now they're catching up. But that I wouldn't be surprised if he outproduced Debo. Especially if Debo's not going to be running as much over the course of a full year with Christian McCaffrey. Oh man. I'm telling you right now, Jordan Addison is going to do it. So I love Jordan Addison. 69, that's pretty pricey too. So I guess it's a pretty obvious one. But, I could go back to Gabe Davis. I know his last year was kind of brutal, but, assuming they don't bring back D-Hop, he was a big winner and he still is. He did have that high ankle sprain from week 1 that, totally screwed him over. He dropped a touchdown at the end of the season, like last game. I'm like, oh, come on, dude. I took the over on your touchdowns, but he could have easily, what do you have, like 7? He should have had like 10 easily. And if he doesn't get hurt, he basically, I think, hits my projection on the head, which is a pretty optimistic one. Got to give love to Elijah Moore, who is our guy, getting a lot of it now. Trying to stay ahead of the markets on him. That's been.
Do you think he overtakes Amari Cooper this year?
I think there's a chance that they kind of turn the page a little bit. Now this is kind of BS, but Amari is a little bit of a you got to get him the ball early kind of a guy, or else he pouts.
He's a front runner.
A little bit. I could see a scenario where Moore really balls out, and by the end of the year, now they're going to be playing for a playoff spot most likely. So this could be complete BS, but I could see it where they kind of mentally go to Moore as the one because they know he's the future, because Amari is gone after this year. That's for sure. I actually spoke about this with Nate Zagura of the Cleveland Browns, their color commentator, and I mean, he may even put that thought in my head, but either that or he completely agree with the assessment. So yeah, that's within the realm. I'm not going to go Sky Moore, even though I want to. I don't want to go be too annoying, but you know what? Screw it, Sky Moore. Zay Flowers. I mean, that's a long shot, but I think he's good, really good. I'm a big Zay Flowers guy. And Odell, I'm not counting on him. Bateman, I just don't know about at this point with the health concerns. Geez, I still wouldn't be shocked if Mooney did it over DJ Moore. I mean, would you be shocked if Mooney had more fantasy points than DJ Moore?
I mean, he was miscast as a 1, in my opinion. I think DJ Moore is going to have a really, really good season. But again, all the defensive pressure now and all the looks are going to go over to DJ Moore. So there's nothing to say that, Mooney can't just break a ton of, bombs and have a bigger season that way, just based on touchdowns, maybe not catching as many passes. I had a bunch of folks asking me about tight ends, John, in the chat here. Stephanie asks, and anytime we get a female in the chat, we're automatically going to answer your question. Can you please give me your thoughts on Greg Dulcich? Is he the tight end sleeper of the year, or are there others? And then we had someone else asking about Jake Ferguson from not Clarissa Explains It All, but the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. Interviewed both guys, by the way, at the combine. That was last year. Great dudes. I always tell the Dulcich story. Everyone's seen him. Stephanie, I'm sure you've seen him. He comes walking up to me with the hair all over.
Another hair guy.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, you look like Jesus. What's up? And he completely went with it. He's a SoCal guy, so he's a chill guy, but awesome guy. And then Ferguson, big fantasy guy, big time fantasy player. Of course, that's also Barry Alvarez's grandson. So you like that? Like, the dude was a star tight end at Wisconsin. That's my uncle Barry Alvarez, but he's not entitled at all. Like the opposite of that. But the question is a great one because in theory, Sean Payton will maximize an athletic tight end like Greg Dulcich. For now, I'm gonna be a little skeptical on a great breakout, just because I think he is still a little raw. We're not completely there yet. It's, kind of a precise offense. I mean, it's not like I have a ton of confidence in Russ. I am expecting a bounce back. They did bring back Sean Payton's old boy, Adam Troutman. They do have the capable Foster. No, I'm getting the team wrong here. I lost my train of thought there for a second. I'm thinking about Albert O. And Troutman. So that's two dudes who are pretty capable. So yeah, I'm going to be a little below that, but I'm willing to be swayed, put it that way, because he absolutely runs like a deer. And if they can scheme him open, and if he can pick things up, be in the right place at the right time, and Russ can get him the ball, I mean, he can do a lot of damage. So I'm willing to warm up to him. But right now I'm just going to be a little cautiously optimistic, not exactly seeing like a huge, year 2 leap, but certainly possible given the talent. And then the other guy was Ferguson, who I think caught a break with this injury on Luke Schoonmaker, who I also interviewed at the combine. Another great guy. I mean, all these tight ends are like awesome guys. Very, very little in terms of entitlement and cockiness. I don't know what it is about these guys. They're all like salt of the earth guys, but yeah. So I mean, I think best ball wise, if you're looking for a sneaky third tight end, I really do think Ferguson is, well, just that, sneaky. I mean, he's not a great athlete. If you look at all the numbers from the combine, like, he's just a guy. But I mean, I thought he looked very good. I thought he's a pretty savvy guy. He's a good red zone guy. I think he's a smart guy. I think my guess is that he picked up the offense pretty quickly, and it looked like he was moving honestly better than Schultz. Now Schultz was dealing with that knee, but I thought he moved. I had no problem with his movement, even though he came in the league as a guy who was considered, he's kind of just a guy. And hey, if he can be the tight end one, which I don't see why he wouldn't be, given the setback that Schoonmaker suffered, and he's a rookie, who's to say that he can't catch 50 balls and score 5 touchdowns?
Absolutely. It's a very sneaky play. Him or a Peyton Hendershot. A lot of
You got to say that like, Peyton Hendershot.
that kid got beat up a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
How about this one? You're going to love how I tie this all together. Jay on Twitter asks, "Hey, John, I drive an Uber in Maine and I listen to you every day. I compete in hundreds of drafts on Underdog. Any good tips on how to get into Dynasty?" Well, let me say this, Jay. If you're playing on Underdog, you better be using code FANTASYPTS, especially if it's your first time getting in, because we're going to match your first time deposit up to $100. Again, code FANTASYPTS. Oh, by the way, Mr. Hansen's so nice, he's going to throw you a fantasypoints.com subscription for just $5 after you use that code FANTASYPTS at Underdog. You want to get into Dynasty, you ask? How about you go over and see our friends at the FFPC? They've got leagues starting every single day from $35 on up. You can adopt an orphan team. Joe Dolan and I did that. You can listen to our show in the archives. Go over to myffpc.com and check that out. So I got all my ad reads in on one question for our friend Jay. So thanks, Jay. We appreciate that, brother.
So the question was,
how does he get into Dynasty?
Well, I would recommend the FFPC, by the way. I mean, the hardcore players. I'm in a super flex that was a startup last year, $2,500 entry. Oh my God, the trade offers these guys get, though. I will say on the high stakes end, I mean, you want to talk about active. I have not had enough time to review all my offers, basically. But I mean, that's where I would go with it. I did terribly in that league early on. Then things started to click. And now I do feel like I'm dare I say, the favorite to win this league. And it's like 35 grand. So I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it locally. Like if you don't have enough dudes to get into a league and make that full commitment, then obviously you need to go online. And if you're a serious player, you want to go to a place like the FFPC because, again, these guys are kind of degenerates. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. So they're dialed in May, June, obviously, and July and August, of course. And they're let's be honest here. Most of these are dudes who've been married for a while. Let's just keep it real. And they
know your friend Jurgens too.
They'd rather look at their fantasy team than spend time with the significant other. I said it. I mean, let's be honest. I'm just keeping it real.
Just keeping it real. How about our friend Rob, don't call him Eric Bischoff, in the chat, literally using the Underdog promotion to renew my fantasy points subscription as we speak. So,
I mean, again, I know Underdog's been around for a while and a lot of people have accounts, but why wouldn't you? If it's a good site too. Like, I mean, these are the two best sites out there, right? In terms of reliability, user friendliness, aesthetics. They work very, very well. Just well-run sites, basically. Like, I never had a problem. I've never had a problem. So I would highly recommend. And I know the owners of this site, the company, Dave and Alex, and they're great dudes. I mean, they're very serious about business. I remember when they started this like 17 years ago, they were very serious and it worked and they're very successful. So it's a good outfit.
Yeah. If you're very serious about fantasy football, you should be subscribed to the YouTube channel of Fantasy Point. Just go over there. You're on the YouTube search. We know you're looking up Mr. Beast videos or God knows what. Search out Fantasy Points, hit that subscribe button, get over to fantasypoints.com, get locked in for the 2023 season. You're not going to want to miss it. You talk about knowing a lot of famous people. We know the guru. He rubs elbows with celebrities left and right. You told me off air you have a Keith Jackson story. And I don't know if this is Keith Jackson, the old announcer, or is this Keith Jackson, the former Eagles tight end?
The former tight end. And it's a funny one. a lot of people have told me, oh, you should write a book or something. A lot of people I did TV work with for the last 10 years at DirecTV, like, I joke around, I am a name dropper, but just an everyday conversation, they could not believe, like, you mention a random name or a celebrity, whatever, like Meatloaf or something, like, oh yeah, I know Meatloaf, like, so they're like, you should write a book, like the
Yeah.
Chronicles of Guru or something. I'm like, I don't know, but I definitely do have a lot of good stories. So this story was on that very same TV show that I started with, where I had the Blue Meanie and
We
Stevie
got to find
Richards.
tapes of this show.
Oh, I do. I have it. No,
Oh
I've
my
got
God.
tapes. Oh yeah.
Get them
No,
to Trey at the at this website. Let's get these things online. We got to get them on the YouTube channel.
I really, well, I don't even know. Like, well, YouTube, I mean, they've got parental controls and all that on there. Cause I mean, it was pretty wild. But anyway, so the story was, in 1995, the first year I did a little fantasy football newsletter. I worked, I grew up right outside of Atlantic City, and I would take advantage of opportunities with that, by the way, whenever I could. In fact, I have a picture of me interviewing one of the Miss America contestants.
Nothing
You
wrong
can
with
see
that.
I have like a beard of zits on my face, for my high school had a television station. So we would take advantage of the celebrity environment there in Atlantic City. But anyway, so I'm doing this show. I just happened to get wind, because I was working for a casino gaming publication as well. I was doing the newsletter on the side. So I just happened to get wind that Keith Jackson was appearing. I don't even know what it was, in Atlantic City. It wasn't like a card show. Maybe it was like an auto show.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the summer of 95. So I'm like, oh, I happen to know some people. And long story short, I got connected with his people. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do this big TV show in Atlantic City. It was a really rinky-dink station, but it was on a lot of cable systems in the area. So that's how we kind of got like a little bit of a cult following and all that. So anyway, he comes on, and it was a good get,
Oh, sure.
It was the summer of 95. The first year, I'm just starting this newsletter thing. Well, part of the side story to it is there was somebody that I ended up working with and knowing very well, who happened to be, I guess, watching. Had never seen the show. He just watched, and he was like, who is this guy? Who is this guru guy? And how the hell did he get Keith Jackson on, Adam Kaplan?
Yes.
Watched the show. So he saw me on the show before I knew him or anything like that. But he always tells the story. He was like livid. Like, how did this guy get Keith Jackson? Well, it even gets better than that, because in the summer of 95, Keith Jackson was a free agent. And, I'm getting ready to, preview the season for the first time ever. Nobody knew where, he was going to sign. This is still kind of pre-internet. Internet was around in 95, but it was pretty damn early. Like, I had a website in 1995. People were like, damn, but so I asked him about, I think he was just wrapping up with Miami, because he had left the Eagles as a free agent. And by the way, I just watched recently the Bosworth documentary. Keith Jackson was a baller playing with the Bos. But anyway, so mid-July, I'm like, yo, Keith, so what's the deal? Camps are opening up in a couple of weeks, this and that. You got to make a decision. He goes, well, actually, it's funny. I just agreed to terms with the Green Bay Packers. and like, it's like, and we're like, what? And then turns out he actually had a little bit of an injury plagued season that year, but in the playoffs that year, they had their biggest win up until that point for decades against the Niners in the playoffs. And it was Keith Jackson. He was balling out. The next year they won the Super Bowl with Keith Jackson. But can you imagine? I mean, that would literally be like Zeke Elliott coming on a podcast and announcing he's signing somewhere in this day and age.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
back then, just you and Mr. C were the only ones seeing it in
Well, yeah.
Atlantic City. Now
Well,
it'd be all over the news.
exactly.
People wouldn't
Ex
believe it. They would say,
ex
"Who's
Nope.
who's this show? This baby Gronk's on the show. Get out of here. We don't care."
It's gotta be the worst media announcement of a signing in NFL history. It was like 49 people watching that show. No, maybe more than that. I mean, I I I did it for about 5 years. I had to almost stop because we were getting a little lewd, and I got recognized by like my son's kindergarten teacher. But I was starting to go out to like bars and stuff, and I'm like, oh, Guru, like I was starting to get recognized. It was a little bit of a cult follow. Actually, our guy Paul Kelly used to watch it all the time before I even met him back in the day.
I love Paul Kelly. We got to get him on. I want to just chew the fat with him about radio.
Yeah.
Abe Prouse. I hope that's your real name. Do you guys like Terrace Marshall this year? Reminder, he was a 5-star recruit out of LSU. And again, Terrace Marshall playing for the Carolina Panthers. That wide receiver room, it's up in the air. They got Jonathan Mingo. You've got DJ Chark. You've got the ageless Adam Thielen. Can Terrace Marshall get off my taxi squad in numerous dynasty leagues and make something of himself in 2023?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Good point. He has got inside outside versatility. A lot of people were talking about slot, but I think they view him as an outside guy. Thus, maybe they get Mingo for early on, Chenault. They also have Shi Smith, who obviously isn't very good. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call. It's a tough call, but I've watched it over the last 2 years, and in my experience, when you have, it's kind of Brian Edwardsy. When maybe you do have the talent, but if it's slow going year one, and then year two, it would be like Sky Moore this year. Like Sky Moore has got to show something here.
Yeah.
Terrace Marshall got opportunities last year. He started getting the snaps. I saw some flashes for sure, but I didn't see enough to where I would feel comfortable and confident that, he's going to break out. And maybe the Mingo edition had spoke to that a little bit, but probably not. I mean, they're collecting young players, but yeah, it could happen. It's within the realm of possible outcomes, but based on history, based on 2 years that really, let's be honest, have been underwhelming, I'm going to vote no on that.
Let's see. Try to do a little rapid fire here before we cut things off. Hope you guys are enjoying the Ask Guru Anything. We're glad to have John come on here. We'll keep him hopefully rolling here throughout the summer as we head up to, draft season. Let's see. Let's find some
Did you
more.
get? I know somebody asked about websites. They're leaving CBS Sports line. Where would they where would I?
Did we have Guru freeze up on us? This must tell people right there, don't talk smack about CBS Sports line because you will instantly freeze up and, they will come after you. So it looks like John is frozen up here. Let's see if I can remove him from the stream, bring him back in. Let's see. No, yeah, John's frozen up. So that's a word to the wise, everybody. The overlords at CBS will hear you talking smack. They do not want you to leave their platform for whatever reason possible. And they will, they will come and get you. So, well, I guess that we're going to have to wrap things up here. Oh, wait, there, John's back.
There it is.
We got him. He froze.
I don't know what happened.
I was saying the overlords at CBS came down from the heavens. They said, don't you dare leave our site. Because
I'm getting
we need you playing on here.
I'm getting some weird feedback here, but that one question about CBS, I don't know where else to go. I kind of like Yahoo, My Fantasy League. Brian, what do you think?
I am a diehard Yahoo guy. I don't think there's a better place to play. For my money at this point, I love those leagues. ESPN's very good too. I know some people are big into sleeper. You just got to experiment with them and see what you're into, see what works for you in your league. I've run one on, like I said, on Yahoo for the past 17, 18 years. So I'm just so used to that app. So I always recommend that to people if they need one. I think we still got the Guru here. You still with us, John?
Yeah.
All right. We still got him. All right. Let me get one or two more questions here. If not a best ball league, regular old league, how do you strategize, if at all, bye weeks in redraft leagues? This is good for sort of maybe people who are maybe newer to fantasy football and they just want to know, how much stock do you put in the buys when you're drafting?
I honestly, I used to worry and panic about it. I stopped worrying, honestly. Like you want to keep an eye on it. Obviously, you don't want to end up a draft with like, four of your five running backs are off week 7, something like that. But I really think it's kind of negligible.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about the bye weeks either. So, well, what we'll do, folks, I'm not exactly sure. We got a little technical stuff going on left and right here, but I do want to thank all you guys so much for coming out,
I'm
hanging out with
sweating
me
my
and the
ass off
guru.
behind this light, by the way, too.
I got 3 of them going on me here, and I'm sick on medicine, so I can't even crack a beer after this show. It's pissing me off. But thank you so much to John for hanging out with us. Thanks, everybody, for coming in and asking Guru anything. I'm Brian Drake for Mr. John Hansen. We'll see you next time over at fantasypoints.com. Take it easy, everybody. Good night.